Something like that. All right, folks. Welcome. It's Parsha time. Chumash and Rashi. New week, new Parsha. Parsha's Chukas. Lots of stuff in this Parsha. Oh my gosh. Like in the others. Let's get right to it. I'm limited on time. Oh boy. Okay. Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron saying, this is the chukah. Chukah is the statutory law, one beyond logic of the Torah. Hashem, that Hashem has commanded Lamor, saying, Dabar b'nei Israel, speak to the children of Israel, b'kwei lecha, and they should take to you a para aduma, a para, a red, a cow, a calf that is a cow that is completely red, asher ein ba mum, that has no blemish, asher lo ola aleha oil, that there was no yoke laid on it. In other words, it didn't do any work. Let's see Rashi. Why is this called the statutory law? Lefish al satan, because the accuser, the Umat Ha'olam and the nations of the world, Mainim and Israel, they aggravate the Jewish people. Lamor, saying, Maha mitzvah zois, what is this commandment? Umatam yeshba, what kind of reasoning and logic does it have? Right? In other words, it's irrational. That's, they're kind of to poke at. The Fika Kasaba, therefore the verse says, Chuka, it's a statutory law, which says, because there's the Lifana, there's a decree before God. You will have no permission to question it. That's what it means. And you should give it to Elazar the Kohen. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yep. Thank you. Oh, someone's paying attention. And they shall take to you. It will eternally be called by your name as ascribed to you. This is the cow that Moshe made in the desert. In other words, they're not going to be taking for him eternally to Moshe, but it's considered on his name because the first one he did. Aduma Tmimam, perfectly red. Shita Tmimas Bad Mimus, that should be perfect in its redness. Because if there were two black hairs, Psula, it's disqualified. Well, they're trying to find the 10th one. There's been 9 in history. And yeah. Cool. And the Satamoisa, and you shall give them Elazar, according to Elazar the Kohen. And you should take it out outside of the encampment, and you should slaughter it there in his presence. Rashi, Elazar. Why Elazar? Mitzvah because this is a mitzvah in the deputy to the Kohen Gadol. Not in the high priest himself, but the deputy to the high priest, right? Because Aaron, his father, was the high priest. Outside of the camp, it's 3 camps, in other words, not just 1 camp. And someone literally that he shall slaughter it in his presence is our sheikhed. A non-kohen may slaughter, and Elazar watches, right? Because that's what the words are saying. Elazar HaKohen, and he will take Elazar the Kohen midama of its blood after it's slaughtered, right? The etzba'ai with his finger, and he will sprinkle. He's outside. He's far. He's very far. It's outside of all of the encampments, right? Which is
still within the courtyard.
No, he's outside the encampments.
Totally. Okay.
There's 3 encampments, right? There's the Mishkan, the sanctuary. Then the Levites encampment, right? And then the Israelite encampment. So inside all of that, right? The 3 encampments. So it's distant, all right? And that's where it's slaughtered. And from there, he takes some of the blood and he sprinkles Pnei oil mayed midama sheva pamim. He sprinkles to the front of the tent of meeting, so he faces it, very distant. He faces it, and with his blood, he sprinkles 7 times in that direction. Right. Rashi in 4. In front of the tent of the meeting, he would stand so here Rashi is explaining it the way it would be in Israel and Jerusalem. He would be stands to the east of Jerusalem, and he aligns himself, and he would see the entrance of the sanctuary, during the sprinkling of the blood. Okay, fine. And then the cow is burnt before his eyes, meaning before Elazar. Its skin, its hide, its skin, there's basara and its flesh, there's dama and all of its blood, and its blood, there's pisha yisrael, and the dung is all burnt. Eight. It is ve'ezay v'shni seilas, and the kohen will then take a piece of cedar wood, a hyssop, and a crimson wool, the hishlach, and he will throw it el teich seifas hapara into the burning of the cow. All right, while it's being burned, so he throws in again a piece of cedar wood, a hyssop, and a crimson wool. Right, it's all getting burnt. The chibes begadav, and then he has to wash his garments. He has to wash its flesh, b'mayim, in water. Then he can come into the encampment. And the kohen, he's unclean until the evening. Right? He's doing, in other words, the kohen that's doing this process becomes unclean by doing the process.
Why?
Because. Okay, let's see Rashi. Because it's a decree before God. That's why it's irrational. Right? To the encampment, meaning to the inner encampment of the Shechina, right? Because there you could be impure in the other two encampments, the Levites or the Israelite encampment, but in the sanctuary you can't be impure, right? So if you're going to continue doing any kind of service, and this is the kohen we're talking about, this is a gan kohen in this particular instance, right? He has to become purified. For one who is impure is not sent out of 2 encampments of the Shechina and the Levites, except for the Zav, Balikeri, and someone who is a Balkeri, Matzera, and one who suffers some tsaras. Right? So he's not sent out as opposed to those that would be. And the kohen will be impure until the evening. Sarseyu, he should invert the wording of the verse, and expound it as follows. They'll be impure until the evening, and then he'll come to the encampment. Right? He says, because the verse says he'll come to the encampment, and then only afterwards he's impure until the evening. He can't come impure into the encampment of where the divine presence of God is. So it's just saying invert the verse. Why it writes that way is the question. So that was the kohen who was watching, right? Also, the one who burns it, Yichabes Bigado, shall also wash his clothes b'mayim, v'rachas b'sara b'mayim, and also, but when we say cleanse your body, it means going to the mikvah here, right?
People, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, v'sara b'mayim, v'tami adarav, and he's impure until the evening, right? Because the one who burns it, the kohen is watching, he's watching, and then there's one who's burning. The asaf ish tahar. Now there's another person. There's a third person, right? Yeah, and he will gather a pure individual as efar apara, the ashes of the cow, and he will leave from it outside of the encampment, but mokum Torah, in a pure place. And it will be for a safekeeping for the children of Israel and Mishmeres, as a it will be kept as a safekeeping. The meinida chatas hu, for the sprinkling of that was used for cleansing. Let's see Rashi. So Rashi is going to explain over here the following. So we're talking now about taking the ashes, right? Talking about taking the ashes. They would divide the ashes into three parts. One part was put on Mount Olive, in Mount Olives, right, which is outside of outside of Jerusalem, right? It's outside of Jerusalem. And one part was divided for all of the watches, meaning that the Kohanim were divided into 24 family groups called watches. And these watches officiate in the Beis Hamikdash, one watch per week according to a fixed rotation. Right. So it was, in other words, a third of it was divided amongst the 24 families, right? Because they would then have to use it when people would come and be impure. They were the ones responsible to purifying those who were impure. So it had to go to them. Or actually, yeah, I think even for themselves. Yeah, for themselves. And for Klasa. And one part was put in the Chel. The Chel is the area immediately outside of the wall of the courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash. That was for those who were coming from the outside who needed to become purified, right? So it was outside. And this part that was of the watches, was kept outside of the courtyard. So that the townspeople and all who need to purify themselves should take from it. And that part which was on Mount Olives, the Kohen Gadol, who would sanctify themselves from it for performing the procedure for burning another red cow. In other words, you needed something completely outside, because that was where completely outside you would need to burn a red heifer. So for the next red heifer, it needed to be there so you could then do that procedure. And that which was in the Chel was put as a safeguard from a decree of the version Emar. The verse here, it says it should be for a safekeeping. So again, you got the three things clear? All the way outside was for the next red heifer. By the entrance was a remembrance, and then outside of the courtyard was for anybody that came and needed to be purified. So if you're Israelite or a Kohen even, right, and you were impure and you were bringing an offering, you can only do it when you're pure. So therefore, it was left there for purification problem. Okay, the main nida, Rashi. What does it mean for the waters of Nida? Lamei Hazaya, for waters of sprinkling. Evin B, and then he threw a stone at me. The other He's just showing that it means to throw, right? That your sprinkling is like throwing. Chata is he. It is a purifier. Lashon chitui, this is a purification. Kipshutei, according to simple meaning, or lefi but in accordance to with the laws, kara kosav chatas, the Torah is calling this a sin offering. Why is it called a sin offering? It's not person who became impure didn't sin, right? You go somewhere and you came in contact with a corpse, with someone who died. It's not a sin. Right? So why is it called a sin offering? Right? It's a unique cleansing, fine, but it's not a sin that you did here. But still, the Torah calls it a sin offering to tell us, Godshim, that it is which is holy like a sin offering. They also behana, meaning it's forbidden to regard to have any personal benefit from the red heifer. No personal benefit. Okay. Now the one who was gathering he had to be pure, the one who was gathering the ashes, but and the one who's he will clean, the one who's gathering the ashes of the para, he has to wash his clothes, v'timei adarav, and he's impure until the evening, v'haisel b'nei Yisrael, and this will be for the children of Israel, l'ger agar b'seichem, and for the converted amongst them, l'chukas elam, for a eternal statute. Hanegeh b'meis, for who? Who is this for? For anyone who touches a corpse. The whole nefesh adam, of any human soul, you become impure for 7 days. Right? And this is the process that you need to become purified. And he will become cleansed through this. On the 3rd day of the 7 days, on the 7th day, he will become pure. But if he will not be sprinkled on the 3rd or the 7th day from these ashes, he will not become cleansed.
There must have been a lot of ashes.
They took very little ashes. Yeah, they didn't use it. Yeah, small amount. With these ashes. 13. Anybody who touches a corpse, adam, of a human soul, asher yomus, that will die, and he will not become cleansed, right? He won't go through this process if he doesn't do it. As Mishkan Hashem Time, then when he goes to the Mishkan, to the sanctuary of God, he makes it impure. And this soul will be cut off, Israel, from the Jewish people, meaning he will have premature death. Ki may nida loy zarak, because the waters of cleansing of the sprinkling waters were not thrown olav upon him, tameiya, and he will still be impure. Oy to masabai, his uncleanliness will still be upon him. Rashi in 13. B'meis b'nefesh, a dead body of a human soul is a mace. Which dead body? Shall nefesh adam, of human soul. Laitzi nefesh beima, to exclude a soul of an animal. Because when you do become impure when you touch a carcass of an animal, but you don't become impure for 7 days, that you need the red heifer. It's only when you come in contact with a human soul, that a human corpse, that you become impurity, that you require sprinkling of the red heifer. Davar acher, the nefesh, a human soul, b'zuv revi'as dam. So why does it say nefesh? The word nefesh, because nefesh means soul, and the soul means at revi'as dam. That's in a measurement of blood, is the which is like 3 ounces of blood, approximately. In other words, if you come in contact with even 3 ounces of blood of a human soul, human being, you also become impure. Es Mishkan Hashem Time. So it's interesting because in the previous verse, hold on. This is verse 13 we're in. The previous verse, it said, sorry, no. And they gave a mace, the whole nefesh adam. I already said, whoever touches the dead of a nefesh adam, of a soul of a person. Yeah, so why is Rashi saying over here that you touch a dead human soul? And from here we know that it's a human soul and not an animal soul. When we had that in verse 11. Why didn't he explain it there? Why is it repeated over here? Good question. I don't have an answer. It's Mishkan Hashem Time, and the Mishkan, the sanctuary of Hashem, he made him pure. When do you make it impure? Only if you enter into the courtyard. Even if you've undergone immersion in the mikvah, but you did not do the sprinkling of the red heifer on the 3rd and the 7th day, you're still impure. And his impurity is still upon him, even though the person is immersed in the mikvah, but they didn't get the sprinkling. Clear? 14. Zois Hateira Adam. This is the Torah, the law, meaning Torah means here law, Adam of a man. Ki yamas ba'oil, when he will die in a tent. Kol abayil oil, anybody who comes into the oil, into the tent. Kol asher ba'oil yitma shivas yomim. Anything that comes in the tent will be unclean for 7 days. Kol abayil oil, as long as the corpse is in it, you become impure. What do we speak about till now? We spoke about if you touch the corpse. Now this verse is adding that if you come into a closed confinement, a tent, right, then you become impure likewise, right? So that, by the way, if you walk into a hospital, right, people die there.
Airbound.
Huh?
Airbound.
I mean, it's airbound.
You have to touch it.
No, here we just said if you walk into a tent, meaning into a sanction, into a room, you don't. That's the whole point. That's what we just learned.
In other words,
It's bound by the fact that you're an enclosure. That's the enclosure, right? So Hadassah Hospital, they make certain things that they make it that you that when one door opens, the other door is still closed, and then that door closes before the second door will open. So that way you can know if there's that's for Kohanim. But Kohen, not for an Israelite, because Israel, right, for a Kohen. The Mashiach is coming anytime, so therefore Kohen should not become impure. That's why Kohen doesn't go to a Beis HaChaim. He doesn't go to a cemetery, right? For that reason. So they make it in such a way, right? That way you're not under a structure with a corpse, with a dead person. Okay. Whole kli. So now it continues the verse and it says whole kli, and any vessel pasuach that is open, asher ein samid psil alav, that there is no seal to it, tamehu. So now it's not just about a person that becomes impure. Now it's even implements, artifacts, vessels that also become impure. That's what this verse is telling us in 15. Kol kli pasuach, any open vessel. Kli cheres akasim medaber. We're only speaking here about an earthenware vessel that has a unique law. She'ein mikabel tuma migabo, that does not receive impurity on the outer surface, ela miteicha, but rather on the interior. Right. In other words, if something impure enters it, it becomes impure. But if it touches it, it doesn't. Lefikach. Therefore, if you didn't seal it, so you have a cup here, okay? If you had a cup, earthenware cup, right? If you covered the top of it, so then it doesn't enter the impurity inside. The fact that it's, like you said, the air, so to speak, yeah. Right? It is doesn't enter. But if you cover it and it's sealed properly, then it doesn't. Right? But if you didn't seal it properly, the chibur with a closed fit, tamehu becomes impure. From this we learn that if it wasn't covered with a proper fastening tar, it is pure. Psil, fastened. Psil is lashem mechubar lashem Arab. Ravi is an Arabic a term of attached. Similarly, naftuli alakim naftalti, God has joined me. The name Naphtali means to be joined. I become attached to my sister. Just giving an example of the term that it means connected, attached. Okay. Now another thing, right? That was if you're in a closed structure. Now, that anything that will touch on the field, right, by a sword. Now, you're not touching it, but let's say you killed a person on the field and your sword is touching that person. You didn't touch him. It's open air, so you're not in a closed structure, right? Right? Or the mace, either with a corpse, or the etzem adam, or the bone of a person, or the kaver, or in their grave. Yitma, you become impure. Shivas yomim for 7 days. So now the verses including more things. Al pnei asada Rashi, on the open field, or Rabbeinu Darshu, our sages learn after this. Rabbis get a little bit defect. What does it mean on the open field. It includes the lid of the coffin and the side of the coffin. That's the expound upon. Pshute, but the simple meaning means on the open field, that there's no tent, that the corpse transmits impurity through touching. I didn't get that. I don't know why Rashi's saying that, through touching. Touching, here it's touching your sword. You didn't even touch the corpse. The way he made it sound was like touching literally.
Probably is referring to the sword.
I guess on the open field means you're touching, but I like, why would that? Not clear. Okay. Yeah, but then it says sword, but Rashi doesn't sound like he's saying sword. Okay, I'm not clear. Last verse, so they shall take for the unclean person the ashes of the chatais, of the purification, this purification, and also Allah mayim, and you should place upon it water, chayim, living waters, el keli, to the vessel. In other words, you have to do this for the vessel too, not just for the human being, for who gets impure, but also for the vessels that have been come in contact with a corpse, right? In these manners that we spoke about, you have to do this process for it likewise. This is to make it purified, right? Purified, so you can use it for purified things. Like if you want to take your meiser, right, Shani, you want to take your second tithes to Jerusalem. You want to take it, you have to take it in a pure bowl if you want to bring it up to Jerusalem. You're going to take it in an impure one, you're making it impure. So you have to purify this in order to use it in a purified place. All right. Tanya coming up in a few